What happens when the owner of a self-storage chain goes undercover and learns his own manager is stealing time from his workers? Quentin Hayes stared at the customer complaint log on his laptop, the screen glowing in his dim home office. It was past midnight. Again. He owned 10 self-storage locations across 3 cities, a business he bought 7 years ago from a retired couple who had run it old-school paper ledgers, handwritten receipts. Quentin modernized it, added online booking, cameras, and automated gates. Business boomed. But lately, complaints had started trickling in mostly from Store 4, tucked between a gas station and a strip mall on the East End. Customers said the gates didn't open on time, that no one was ever in the office, that a woman named Raquel, the only one who actually helps, one review read, deserved a raise. Quentin had never met Raquel or the current manager. When he bought the business, he kept a light footprint. The district manager handled staffing. He'd show up once a year for audits, but most employees wouldn't know him from a regular guy on the street. That gave him an idea. The next morning, he shaved the beard he'd worn for a decade, dyed his salt and pepper hair a deep brown, and traded his usual button-up for a faded hoodie and jeans. He printed a fake name tag, Jason, and showed up at Store 4 posing as a new trainee sent over by corporate to learn frontline operations. "Name's Jason," he said to the manager behind the plexiglass counter. The man barely looked up from his phone. "Yeah, whatever. I wasn't told about this. I was told to show up today. Said I'd be shadowing." The manager let out a heavy sigh and stood. "I'm Dean. Don't get in the way, and we'll be fine." Dean was in his early 40s, wore aviators indoors, and had a Bluetooth earpiece in the whole time. Quentin followed him around as he half-heartedly explained how to open up the gates, how to check a unit, and where to find the bathroom keys. The place was a mess. Dust on the counters. 2 security cameras blinking red, which meant they weren't connected. The gate stuck halfway when they opened for the day, and Dean just muttered, "It does that sometimes." Raquel showed up an hour later. She was in her late 20s, wore a faded polo shirt tucked into khakis, and held a clipboard full of printed contracts. "Dean, the locks came in," she said, lifting a box. "Also, the unit on B6 still has that broken latch." "I told you last week," Dean waved her off. "I'll get to it." She looked at Quentin. "You the new guy?" "Yeah. Jason. First day." She gave a tired smile. "Good luck." By noon, Quentin had seen enough to know something was very wrong. Dean stayed in the back office most of the time, watching videos on his phone. Raquel ran the counter, helped customers, cleaned up, even handled late payments. Around 3, a young guy named Eli came in for his shift. Quentin watched as Eli clocked in at the punch terminal, then saw Dean walk over 5 minutes later, tap a few keys, and erase the timestamp. Quentin blinked. Did he just? Dean didn't know Quentin could see the screen from the mirror reflection across the room. He did it again when Raquel clocked out. Changed her clock-out time to 30 minutes earlier. That night, Quentin sat in his car in the lot, watching the building as the sun dipped. Raquel had locked up. Dean had left early. Eli had cleaned the floors without being asked. Quentin rubbed his forehead. This guy's shaving time off their pay. He had to stay longer. He needed proof. And he needed to see just how deep this went. The next day, he showed up early. Raquel was already there, sweeping the parking lot. "You always open up?" he asked. "Yeah. If I wait for Dean, the place opens late. Had customers yelling at me last week." "Does he always adjust your time cards?" Raquel's eyes snapped to his. "How do you know about that?" "I saw him yesterday." She looked away. "I've tried to say something, but our district manager never replies. Last time I pushed, Dean cut my hours." That night, Quentin sat on a folding chair in the back hallway, watching security footage on his tablet. He'd had the IT guy who didn't know Quentin was the owner remotely restore the camera logs to his device. The footage from the past 2 weeks was clear. Dean was cutting time from every employee. and pocketing the saved payroll. Quentin's jaw tightened. He'd built this company to be better than that. And this guy was stealing not just from the business, but from hardworking people who couldn't afford to lose a dime. He wasn't done yet. Tomorrow, he'd press harder and see who really stood for what. The morning after Quentin reviewed the security footage, he arrived at Store 4 before sunrise. The air was still cool, and the lot was quiet except for a delivery truck idling nearby. He leaned against the side of the building and waited. Raquel pulled up a few minutes later in a dented Corolla, carrying a thermos and a folder tucked under her arm. She looked surprised to see him. "You're early. I figured I'd try opening myself today. See what happens if no one else shows." Raquel unlocked the side entrance and pushed the door open with her shoulder. "You be standing here until 10. He followed her into the office. A stack of overdue customer notices sat untouched on the corner desk, half covered by a cracked keyboard. She set down her things and picked up a rag to wipe the front counter. "Do you always bring that binder in with you?" he asked. She hesitated, then handed it to him. "I make copies of the contracts and keep a log of who I check in, just in case the system goes down again. It's happened more than once." Quentin opened the folder. Her handwriting filled every page: unit numbers, names, times, even notes about customer complaints. "You've been doing this on your own?" She shrugged. "If something goes wrong, Dean blames me. So I document everything." Dean didn't arrive until nearly an hour after opening. He walked in sipping from a drive-through cup and went straight to the back without acknowledging either of them. Quentin followed him after a few minutes, pretending to need help with the inventory list. "Dean, where's the key to the supply closet?" Raquel said it's locked. Dean didn't look up. "Ask her where she put it. She said you had it." He stood slowly, annoyed. "Look, man, I don't know what kind of hero act you're trying to pull, but this place doesn't need fixing. Just stay out of my way." Quentin met his eyes. "I just want to learn how things run." Dean stepped closer. "Then learn to keep your head down. You're not here to question how I manage." Quentin didn't respond. He just nodded and walked back toward the front. As he passed the break room, he noticed the schedule pinned next to the microwave. Raquel was listed for 6 shifts that week, each marked with flex hours, meaning no official end time. Eli had 4 short shifts, all midday. Dean had himself down for full time, but none of the timestamps matched what Quentin had seen on the footage. By early afternoon, a customer came in furious. A middle-aged man in a work jacket slammed a receipt on the counter. "This says I have access until next week. I came by last night, and the gate locked me out." Raquel checked the system. "You're paid through the 15th. Something's not right." Dean appeared out of nowhere. "Sir, our system logs every entry. If it shows you didn't have access, that's on you." The man's face flushed. "I've been renting here since your boss before you. Don't talk to me like I'm lying." Quentin stepped forward. "Sir, I'm new here. Let me take a look at the logs." Dean cut in. "This has nothing to do with you." But the man handed Quentin his receipt anyway. "I called 3 times. No one answered. I waited half an hour at the gate." Raquel stood silent, watching. Quentin walked over to the terminal and pulled up the logbook. The man's code had been used at the gate at 8:13 p.m. The access system had flagged it as unrecognized, even though it was valid. "This isn't on you," Quentin said quietly. "The system rejected you, for no reason. I'll fix it." Dean didn't like that. "We're not refunding a full day over a glitch." The customer looked ready to explode. Quentin typed in a comp credit and extended the man's rental by 2 weeks. Dean stormed into the back office. Raquel leaned over the counter and whispered, "He's never done that for anyone." Quentin kept his voice low. "How many times has this happened?" She looked down. "At least twice a week." He nodded. "I need your help with something." She hesitated. "What kind of help?" "Dean's been making changes to the Timecard system. I saw him do it. I need you to track when you and Eli arrive and leave. Write it down every shift. Don't tell anyone. Just keep it for yourself. She narrowed her eyes. Are you with corporate? He paused. Not exactly. But I promise I'm on your side. She studied him for a long beat, then nodded once. An hour later, while Dean was out getting supplies, Quentin joined Eli in the back lot where he was hauling a busted shelving unit toward the dumpster. Need a second pair of hands?
Quentin asked.
Eli wiped his forehead with his sleeve.
Sure.
Watch your step. One of the wheels is broken. As they lifted the frame together, Quentin asked, You been here long? About 8 months. Started part-time. Still am, I guess. You ever get full hours? Eli let out a dry laugh. Only when Raquel pushes for it. Dean keeps everyone under 30 hours, so we don't get benefits. You ever notice anything weird with your paycheck?
Eli nodded slowly.
Sometimes I clock out, but the hours don't match. I thought it was just mistakes. It's not. Eli looked at him sideways. You some kind of auditor? Quentin didn't answer. You think other people notice? I don't think they care. Dean's tight with someone up top, I think. Nobody ever checks this place. Quentin frowned. You ever report anything? Eli shook his head. Last guy who did got moved to a location 2 hours away. Without asking. That night, Quentin drove to the regional office 30 miles away. He parked in the lot and waited until the district manager, a man named Rick, stepped out with his briefcase. Quentin caught him before he reached his car.
Rick.
I need a word. Rick squinted. Do I know you? I'm Quentin Hayes. Rick's expression dropped. You're the owner. Quentin nodded. I've been undercover at Store 4. I've seen timecard fraud, customer mistreatment, and mismanagement. I watched Dean shave hours off payroll and neglect maintenance. I have video logs, system records, and written statements. Rick opened his mouth, but Quentin raised a hand. I don't want excuses. I want to know why this wasn't caught. Rick swallowed. Dean's numbers always looked good. I didn't know he was. You didn't look. You let him run that place like it was his own. You ignored emails, complaints. That ends now. Rick's voice dropped. I'll handle it.
No.
I'll be there tomorrow morning. You'll meet me on site. And bring HR. The next morning, Quentin stood at the front office of Store 4 in a blazer and slacks. Raquel blinked when she saw him. You're the owner.
He nodded.
I needed to see it for myself. Rick arrived 10 minutes later with an HR rep and a folder of documentation. Dean walked in holding a breakfast bagel, looked up and froze. What the hell is this? Quentin stepped forward. Dean, you're fired. Effective immediately. Rick will walk you through the paperwork. HR has authorizations to forward everything to legal. Dean started to object, but Quentin cut him off. I have security footage of you altering time cards. I have employee statements. I have customers who've filed formal complaints. You've made this company vulnerable to lawsuits. You've stolen from people who earn their pay honestly. There's nothing left to say. Dean's shoulders stiffened. His mouth opened and closed, but he didn't speak. Rick took him by the elbow and led him to the back. Quentin turned to Raquel and Eli, who had stepped out of the back room. You two deserved better than this. You've carried this place. Raquel looked stunned. What happens now? Now, Quentin said, we fix it. He had no illusions. Cleaning up would take time, but the first step was done. The silence Dean left behind felt like the first breath of fresh air this store had taken in a long time. Quentin stepped into the back office of Store 4, now quiet except for the low hum of the HVAC. Dean's desk was cleared out, the drawers left half open and empty. Rick had left shortly after the termination paperwork was signed, offering only a stiff nod before disappearing out the door. The HR rep stayed behind to interview staff and begin a formal audit of the store's payroll records. Quentin didn't sit. He stood by the window overlooking the parking lot, watching Eli walk a customer to their unit. The kid carried a bolt cutter in one hand and a clipboard in the other. He was talking, but even from this distance, Quentin could tell he was listening more than speaking. Raquel stepped into the office, holding a clipboard with a new set of rental agreements. Her shirt was untucked, and her hair was pulled back in a loose braid. Her eyes flicked to Dean's empty desk, then back to Quentin. "They're asking about tomorrow's schedule," she said. "We've only got 2 of us who can open now. Do you think you can cover the morning?" "I'll make it work," she said, but there was no pride in it, just exhaustion.
No.
"Not just make it work. I need you to tell me what's sustainable." Raquel hesitated, then sat down across from him. "We need someone else. 2 people can't keep this place open 7 days a week, not without burning out." Quentin nodded. "You know anyone you trust?" "There's a woman who used to work here, Maria. She left 6 months ago. Said Dean kept cutting her shifts last minute. She was solid. Knew the system better than anyone. Can you reach out to her?" "I'll try. She works nights at a distribution center now. But if she'll come back, we'd be lucky." Quentin glanced at the clock. "I've got a call with payroll in 20 minutes. In the meantime, I want you to write out everything you'd do differently if this place were yours. Don't hold back." Raquel raised an eyebrow. "You serious?" "Dead serious." She leaned forward. "I'd fix the gate sensor first.
Customers keep getting locked out.
Then I'd switch the cleaning schedule. We need more coverage on weekends, not Mondays. And the camera system is running 2 weeks behind on updates. Dean never let us escalate it." "Noted. What about Eli?" "He's solid. Young, but he learns quick. Just need someone to show him the full picture." Quentin stood. "Then show him. I'll handle the rest." He left her in the office and stepped outside. The sky had turned gray, the kind of sky that made the metal storage doors look lifeless. He walked the perimeter alone, checking locks, inspecting the units personally. The B6 latch was still broken. Dean had lied about fixing it. Quentin took a picture and added it to the growing list on his phone. By late afternoon, the HR rep called him into the break room. "We've reviewed the last 6 months of timecard logs," she said, flipping through a thick binder. Dean manually adjusted over 90 entries. Most were reductions between 15 and 45 minutes. "The pattern is consistent." He targeted specific employees and reversed entries after shifts ended. Quentin looked at the page. "Will they get that money back?" "We're calculating the totals now. Once verified, we'll issue corrected pay within the week. I want it tracked by name. They deserve to know it didn't go unnoticed." The HR rep nodded. "We'll also flag this location for quarterly audits going forward." "Good. What about legal?" "Corporate counsel is reviewing whether we file civil charges." Quentin's jaw tightened. "Do it. No warning shots." She closed the binder. "Understood." He left the break room and found Eli back at the counter, filling out a maintenance request slip in careful block letters. His uniform shirt had 2 missing buttons near the collar. "You doing okay?"
Quentin asked.
Eli looked up.
"Yeah. I mean."
"Better now. You ever think about training into a full-time role?"
Eli hesitated.
"I thought about it before. Dean told me I wasn't dependable enough. You've been on time every day since I showed up." "I try. My grandmother raised me. She always said, you show up, even when nobody notices." Quentin folded his arms. "I noticed. And if you want it, there's a full-time spot open. Comes with benefits."
Eli blinked.
"Seriously?" "Seriously. But I'll expect you to take initiative when things break. Step in when others won't."
"Can you do that?" Eli nodded slowly. "Yeah."
"I can." Quentin extended a hand. "Then consider it yours." Eli shook it, his grip firm but unsure, like no one had ever offered him something without a catch. A few hours later, after closing, Raquel returned with a phone in her hand. Maria wants to come in tomorrow. She said she misses this place. She'll have a spot if she wants it. Raquel tilted her head. You're not what I expected. What did you expect? Someone who'd show up for a photo op, maybe toss us a pizza party, then disappear. I'm not going anywhere. She nodded slowly. Then I want to fix the training manual. The one Dean used was from 5 years ago. Half the procedures are outdated. Do it. Take whatever time you need. Raquel glanced at the now empty manager desk. Who's taking that spot? Quentin didn't answer right away. He looked around the office, the dusty corners, the frayed chairs, the light bulb that flickered overhead. Let's see how the next few weeks go, he finally said. I want to see who leads without the title. After she left, Quentin stayed behind, sorting through paperwork that had piled up in Dean's locked drawer. Receipts for supplies that had never been delivered. Vendor invoices that didn't match store records. Even a few handwritten notes where Dean had sketched out schedules that differed from what had been submitted to payroll. It wasn't just time theft. It was manipulation, isolation,
Control.
Quentin gathered the documents into a folder and labeled it for legal review. Then he shut off the lights and locked up. The next morning, he arrived unannounced at 2 other locations in the chain Store 2 and Store 7. He didn't go undercover this time. He walked in as himself, unannounced, and asked for the manager on duty. At Store 2, the place ran like clockwork. The manager, a woman in her 50s named Carla, had a whiteboard tracking maintenance, customer issues, and open units. The team greeted customers by name. At Store 7, it was different. The manager was absent, and the lone employee on duty, a young man with headphones in, didn't look up from his phone for almost a full minute. Quentin didn't say a word. He just watched. By the end of the day, he sent an instruction to corporate. Every location would be visited without notice over the next 30 days. No more blind spots. No more assumptions. Back at Store 4, Raquel was training Eli on the payment system. Maria had shown up an hour early, already walking the grounds as if she'd never left. The broken latch on B6 had been replaced. The gate's sensor technician was scheduled for the morning. Quentin stood at the edge of the lot, watching the team work as the sun dipped behind the buildings. He'd come looking for answers. Instead, he'd found something better. People who still cared, even when no one was watching. The first rain in weeks tapped quietly against the metal roof of Store 4. Inside, the office lights gave off a warm yellow glow, casting long reflections across the clean counter. Quentin stood behind it, arms crossed, watching Raquel and Maria walk through the new procedures they'd drafted the night before. Eli was sweeping the front lot, his jacket hood pulled tight around his face. It had been 5 days since Dean was fired. 5 days of slow, deliberate rebuilding. The atmosphere was different now, still tense in places, but no longer brittle. The team moved with quiet focus, not fear. Customers were returning, too. A few who had previously left negative reviews had come back after Raquel personally followed up. Quentin hadn't asked her to do that. She just had. He stepped into the side room where the HR rep had set up a temporary desk. She looked up from her laptop. We're almost done processing the back pay for the time card corrections, she said. Raquel and Eli will see it by Friday. Quentin nodded. What about Maria? She wasn't on the books when the changes happened, but we're onboarding her formally today. He glanced at the open spreadsheet on her screen. How far back did it go? Nearly 8 months. Dean had a pattern: he'd trim minutes off clockouts, then round down shift lengths. Never enough to trigger flags in the system, but enough to skim a few hours a week per employee. Quentin's gaze lingered on the numbers. We need a better alert system. Something that flags manual overrides. HR nodded. IT is working on it. You'll get a report next week. After she left, he headed back toward the front. Raquel was finishing a call with a customer who needed a last-minute move-in. She set the phone down and turned to him. Unit C22 needs a new lock. I've logged it. Maria's writing up the work order. He didn't offer praise.
She didn't need it right now.
What she needed was trust. Once we get a fourth person in here, you'll get a real weekend. I'm fine for now. I know. But I'm not asking you to prove it. She nodded once, then turned back to her screen. Later that afternoon, Quentin held the first all-hands meeting the store had seen in over a year. They gathered in the break room, chairs pulled from the front desk area. He stood at the edge of the whiteboard, marker in hand, not a single logo or slide behind him, just a list of names and hours. I'm going to make this quick, he began. You've all had your time wasted before. I'm not here to give you another speech you'll forget tomorrow. No one said anything. They just listened. You're owed back pay. That's being fixed. You're owed working systems. That's being fixed. But more than that, you're owed respect for showing up, for handling problems, and for not walking away when things got bad. He turned to Eli. You've accepted the full-time role. Starting next Monday, your new schedule kicks in. You'll also be trained on vendor coordination. Maria will oversee that.
Eli nodded, eyes steady.
Quentin turned to Raquel next. You've been acting manager in everything but title. You've taken initiative, solved problems, and kept this place running during a storm. She shifted in her seat, unsure. I'm offering you the manager position. Not interim. Not probationary. Full title. You'll have hiring authority. You'll set the schedule. You'll get a raise, and you'll report directly to me for the next 90 days. Her hands tightened around the pen she was holding. Why me? She asked. Because you already do the job. And because you've earned it. Maria smiled quietly beside her. Raquel looked at the others before answering.
Yes.
I'll take it. But I want to train someone to backfill me. I don't want to be the only one holding the line again. You won't be, Quentin said. We're posting for the fourth staffer this week. You'll help pick them. After the meeting, the team lingered. Not out of obligation, but because for the first time they felt the place belonged to them. Maria showed Eli how to submit a maintenance order electronically. Raquel pulled out the new training manual she'd been assembling. Quentin stepped outside to take a call from corporate. Rick's voice came through the line, low and cautious. We've reviewed the report. Legal is moving forward with restitution claims against Dean. He's been permanently barred from rehire. He should be. There's something else, Rick added. We found similar timecard anomalies at Store 7. Not as blatant, but enough to trigger an audit. Quentin's jaw tightened. Handle it. If it's the manager, they're gone by end of day. Already in motion. He ended the call and stood by the edge of the lot, watching clouds drift low across the horizon. The rain had stopped. The pavement was dark but drying. The next morning, he returned with two things: a new set of security keys and a signed document naming Raquel the official site manager. She didn't say much as she accepted it.
She didn't need to.
By noon, the new gate sensor was installed. The vendor shook hands with Eli, who had coordinated the visit himself. Maria had finished organizing the supply room, labeling every shelf. Quentin watched it all unfold from the corner of the office, unseen by most of the customers who came and went. It wasn't perfect. Not yet.
But it was honest.
And it was theirs. Before leaving for the day, he stopped at Raquel's desk. I'll be back next month. Unannounced, he said. She gave a slow nod. Good. He narrowed his eyes. You want surprise visits? I want accountability. For everyone. He smiled just once. You'll have it. He walked out the door and into mild autumn air, locking the door behind him. This time, he didn't feel the need to look back. He knew what was happening inside. He knew who was running things now. And he knew they would never let it fall apart again. Not on their watch.